Emma had grown used to the loneliness. It crept into her life slowly, like ivy strangling the edges of her marriage. Mark's work kept him away for weeks at a time, his promises of shorter trips and more time together fading like old photographs. Their house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now stood hollow and silent, its spacious rooms a constant reminder of what she had lost. Emma spent her days working from home as a freelance graphic designer. Hours blurred into one another, her world reduced to computer screens and quiet meals taken alone. Friends had drifted away over time, unable to compete with her increasingly reclusive lifestyle. Her isolation was a heavy, persistent ache she couldn't seem to shake. The storm came suddenly that evening, fat raindrops hammering against the windows, the sky a moody slate of greys and blacks. Emma was curled up on the couch, trying to focus on her latest project, when a loud knock cut through the steady thrum of rain. Startled, she rose and made her way to the door, heart pounding with equal parts anxiety and curiosity. When she opened it, she found a man standing on her porch, soaked through and shivering. "I'm so sorry to bother you," he said, his voice muffled by the rain. "My car broke down just down the road. My phone's dead, and, well, you're the only house with the lights on." Emma hesitated, glancing past him at the downpour that showed no sign of easing. Something about his posture, desperate, but respectful, chipped away at her caution. "Come inside. You'll catch your death out there," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "Thank you," he breathed, offering a grateful smile as he crossed the threshold. Once inside, he stood awkwardly by the door, dripping water onto the hardwood floor. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his dark hair plastered to his forehead. There was something rugged about him, softened only by the kindness in his gaze. "Lucas," he introduced himself. "I just moved into the neighborhood. Well, technically, the old cabin a couple of miles down the road. Not exactly neighborly distance, but still. I'm Emma. And don't worry about it. Let me grab you a towel." A few minutes later, Lucas was wrapped in a dry towel and sipping coffee on her couch, the warmth from the mug coloring his cheeks. Emma couldn't help but smile at his appreciative groan. "This is perfect. I think I was turning into an ice block out there," he said, eyes crinkling with humor. "I guess you picked the wrong night for a drive," Emma replied, surprised by how easily the conversation flowed. "Yeah, I seem to have a knack for bad timing," he said with a chuckle. "But maybe this time, it wasn't all that bad." His gaze lingered on her a moment too long, and Emma felt her pulse quicken. The storm outside raged on, but for the first time in a long while, Emma didn't feel so alone. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the world drenched and gleaming under a pale sun. But Lucas lingered over breakfast, his easy conversation filling the quiet spaces Emma had grown used to. They spoke of little things at first, weather, books, and the quirks of small-town living. But their words soon deepened, winding through topics of dreams, failures, and the loneliness they both recognized in the other's eyes. It was strange how easily Lucas fit into her world. His presence was like a warm light cutting through years of darkness. His smile came freely, his laughter rich and unforced. And when he listened to her, he really listened, his attention unwavering, his curiosity genuine. Days passed, and Lucas kept finding reasons to return. His laptop was acting up. He needed help deciphering old recipes. He was simply passing by and thought she might enjoy a freshly baked pie he'd tried his hand at making. His excuses were flimsy, almost transparent, but Emma accepted them all the same. They slipped into a comfortable rhythm, conversations flowing as naturally as the coffee they often shared. Emma found herself looking forward to Lucas's visits, her heart lifting at the sight of his familiar smile. One afternoon, as they sat on her porch watching the sun stretch golden fingers across the landscape, Lucas leaned back in his chair and sighed. "It's been a long time since I've felt this peaceful," he admitted, his gaze locked on the horizon. Emma's chest tightened. "I know the feeling. It's like, the world slows down when you find the right person to share it with." Lucas looked at her then, his eyes searching hers as if trying to read the thoughts she left unspoken. "Emma, I don't want to overstep, but I feel like I've found something I didn't even know I was looking for." His words left her breathless. She knew what he meant. The connection between them had grown stronger with each passing day, drawing them together in a way that felt as natural as breathing. But the guilt was always there, clawing at the edges of her happiness. "You know I'm married," she said softly, the words tasting bitter even as she forced them out. "I know. And I respect that," Lucas replied, his voice steady but pained. "But it doesn't change how I feel. And I think you feel it, too." Emma dropped her gaze, her hands trembling slightly. "I do. And that's what scares me." Silence settled between them, thick and heavy. But even in that silence, there was understanding. "I'm not asking you for anything, Emma. Just honesty," Lucas said finally. And with that, he left, leaving her alone with her tangled emotions and the undeniable truth she could no longer ignore. Lucas's words echoed in Emma's mind long after he had left. Just honesty. But honesty felt like a fragile thing, something easily shattered by guilt and fear. For days, she avoided him, her own conflicted feelings coiling tightly around her chest like thorns. Mark had called twice since then. Their conversations were clipped and predictable, his tone distracted, his mind clearly elsewhere. Even when he said the words "I love you," they came out like a reflex, empty and habitual. Emma's responses felt just as hollow. Her loneliness grew sharper, its edges cutting deeper with every silent evening. The house seemed colder, the shadows longer. And worst of all, the one person who had made her feel alive again was the very person she was pushing away. One evening, Emma found herself standing at Lucas's doorstep, her hands trembling slightly as she knocked. The sun was sinking behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet. The door opened, and Lucas stared at her, surprise flaring in his eyes before settling into something softer. "Emma, I didn't expect to see you." "I know," she said, her voice shaky but determined. "I've been avoiding you. And it's not fair. You asked for honesty, and I've been hiding from it." Lucas stepped aside, gesturing for her to come in. The cabin was cozy and welcoming, the scent of cedar and coffee mingling in the air. She took a seat on the well-worn couch, her fingers twisting nervously in her lap. "I don't even know where to start," Emma admitted, her gaze locked on the floor. "Everything's a mess. My marriage, it's been broken for so long. I kept pretending it wasn't, hoping things would get better. But they haven't. And then you came along and made me feel like I mattered again." "You do matter," Lucas said softly, his voice steady and sure. "To me, you do." Emma's eyes met his, the sincerity in his gaze disarming her. "I've been lying to myself, Lucas. Telling myself that what's between us is just loneliness talking. But it's more than that. You make me feel seen. You make me feel alive." Lucas swallowed, his expression torn between hope and pain. "What are you saying, Emma?" "I'm saying I don't want to keep running from the truth," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I care about you. More than I should. And I don't want to lose whatever this is before I even understand it." Without thinking, she reached for his hand. His fingers closed around hers, their warmth a balm to the coldness she'd been carrying for so long. Their lips met in a gentle, tentative kiss, one that held the weight of everything unspoken between them. A kiss that wasn't just about passion, but about acceptance. But as the moment ended, reality crashed back in. Emma pulled away, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I have to face my marriage, Lucas. Whatever happens, I need to find out what's real." And though his smile was tinged with sadness, Lucas nodded. "I understand. But if you ever need me, I'm here." The truth couldn't be buried any longer. Emma had spent weeks suffocating under the weight of her own denial, torn between the safety of familiarity and the undeniable connection she felt with Lucas. But one thing was clear, whatever she felt for Lucas couldn't be explored while she was bound by a marriage that had long since withered. When Mark returned from his latest trip, his presence felt like an intrusion rather than a reunion. He looked tired, his gaze rarely meeting hers as he unpacked his suitcase with mechanical efficiency. The distance between them was palpable, stretching like a chasm neither seemed willing to bridge. "Mark, we need to talk," Emma said one evening, her voice steadier than she expected. He glanced up, eyes dull and weary. "Can it wait? I've had a rough day." "It can't. Not anymore." She took a breath, her hands trembling but her resolve firm. We've been living like strangers under the same roof for years. I've been trying to pretend things are fine, but they're not. And I think we both know that. Mark's shoulders slumped, a flicker of pain crossing his face before settling into resignation. I guess I've known it, too. Just didn't want to admit it. Their conversation stretched deep into the night, an unraveling of truths long buried beneath routine and convenience. They spoke of love that had faded, dreams that had drifted apart, and the silent ache of feeling unseen. By the end, tears had been shed, apologies exchanged, but most importantly, acceptance had been reached. Their decision to part was mutual, their goodbye more of a gentle release than a painful rupture. Emma felt sorrow, of course, but there was also a profound sense of relief. She had chosen honesty over pretense, freedom over fear. With the divorce papers signed and her world slowly rearranging itself, Emma found herself at Lucas's door one quiet afternoon, her heart a jumble of nerves and hope. Lucas opened the door, surprise flaring in his eyes before his expression softened into something like relief. Emma. Hi, she said, her voice almost a whisper. I needed to see you. To tell you that I faced the truth. With Mark. With myself. And I'm ready to choose what feels real. To choose you. The smile that spread across Lucas's face was radiant, his eyes gleaming with a joy that made Emma's heart swell. You have no idea how long I've wanted to hear that. She stepped into his arms, his embrace warm and certain, grounding her in a way she hadn't felt in years. Their lips met, not with desperation, but with a quiet certainty that this was where they both belonged. A new beginning born not from loneliness, but from the courage to face the truth. And as they held each other in the soft glow of the afternoon, Emma knew her life had finally found its way back to warmth, to connection, and to something that felt achingly, beautifully real.